Yeah, Jurassic World really made the Ankylosaurus look like fodder in this scene. Its main weapon that should have dislocated the hybrid's jaw at the very least left a light bruise. But it's not that surprising considering what they made the hybrid do to a herd of sauropods. The paleo-accurate Ankylosaurus was a deadly adversary to the Tyrannosaurus, despite being significantly smaller, with the average weight being between 5 and 6 tons, and the highest placing it at 8. The higher ends are still even lighter than the average T-Rex, yet there has been no fossils found with the Ankylosaurus showing any sort of damage from a T-Rex. Although very few fossils have been found to begin with, so it just means that there hasn't been an Ankylosaurus found with bite marks yet. Because the T-Rex did almost certainly take down Anky's because its bite is capable of shattering an Ankylosaurus armor despite all the comics and artwork, but as a prey item, it was just a last resort. So realistically, the Indominus should have been on the floor trying to fix its jaw. Although Jurassic World didn't do it any service, other movies and games more than make up for this, from a 20-ton Ankylosaurus that dwarfs a mammoth to an arcade game Menace capable of performing martial arts. Before I go on, consider hitting that like and subscribe button and watching to the end. Your support really does help me continue making videos like this, and if you're new here, I do stuff like this all the time, and some of my videos are actually subscribe suggestions, like this one, so leave yours in the comment. With the introductions out of the way, let's get right into the strongest versions of these tanks we've seen on screen. Every dinosaur in Ice Age is oversized, and I mean every dinosaur. Take Rudy for example. An 80+ ton baryonyx that has sickle claws meant for hunting sauropods, and then there were these things, although not real animals in the movie. I would assume they were based off Microraptors due to their toe claw, or at least an Archaeopteryx. The Ankylosaurus in Ice Age 3 is not just upsized, it's apparently a carnivore too, or at least an omnivore. First off, its design is the most extreme version of an Ankylosaurus I think you could possibly make. As for its size, it's more than double the weight of Manny, who is 10 tons, and he doesn't have a club. He has an entire wrecking ball with spikes on it. It's so heavy that once it's in the air, the animal can't change its direction mid-fight. If it aims at a certain target, it's going to hit that spot, even if it wanted to change direction after the target is moved. I mean, yeah, it can keep it in the air, but once it gets going, there's no stopping it. For an animal weighing more than 20 tons, it can move fairly quickly and also quietly. Because as Manny and the others were crossing over into the dinosaur world, it low-key moves like a centipede, and its presence was only found out after it landed a terribly aimed attack. On another note, its teeth are weirdly shaped for an Ankylosaurus. Wait, what am I saying? That's not the weirdest part. The weirdest part is that this thing doesn't have a beak like the real life version. Instead, it has a gaping mouth filled with teeth that look like they're designed to rip flesh. Although other herbivores like sauropods have teeth that look somewhat similar to this, but not as sharp. As Manny was running away, it tried to land a bite to prevent him from escaping. Either this thing was somehow carnivorous, or the more likely option, it was just extremely territorial. Modern day animals such as hippos are very territorial and kill more people than any other mammal on the continent. Yet, it's a herbivore, despite having dentition that looks more akin to that of a carnivore. After its tail gets stuck between some rock structures, it eventually just breaks them in order to get free. This wrecking ball of a club is so powerful that it leaves mini craters when it hits the ground. If it is in fact just a territorial animal, then it would be the worst possible thing for any theropod to face, unless you're Rudy, who's the largest carnivore in that world and dwarfs even this Anky, so much to the point where it's shivering in fear. However, no carnivore in the Jurassic franchise is that big. I'll tell you what, if the hybrid tried to pull up on this thing, its head would get destroyed. As a matter of fact, it's more likely to end up getting bitten than her biting the herbivore, and considering that it wasn't threatened by Manny in the slightest, who is 2 tons heavier than the Indominus, then I don't think even the largest theropods of the franchise could do anything to intimidate or even damage it in any way. As large as this Anky is, the next Ankylosaurus proves that size doesn't always equal strength, because if this one landed a hit on the Ice Age giant, all that would be left is a mist of blood. Dinosaur King strikes again, with yet another dinosaur from the show immediately taking the spot of strongest on the list. As a Dinosaur Dan fan in a world full of Dinosaur King enthusiasts, I personally always liked Dinosaur Dan better, because I never really got into Dinosaur King, but it still is a good show that most of you grew up on. In this show, the weakest dinosaurs are at least building level, and the most powerful ones can destroy planets if their powers were used for the wrong reasons. Dinosaur King is basically the dinosaur version of Pokemon. They even have their own Team Rocket called the Alpha Gang, whose sole mission is to collect all of the dinosaur cards so that Dr. Z can become the Dinosaur King. If I had to rate this Ankylosaurus power level, I would say that it's around city block or a bit above that based on what I've seen it do. This Ankylosaurus apparently lives in a subterranean type of environment where it's able to burrow underground like a mole and do a charged up attack. When it's inside the museum, it casually breaks through the walls with no effort if it wants to go anywhere. When it gets into a fight with a Cycania called Tank, he gets pummeled repeatedly and gets stomped multiple times on the soft underside. He was hit so hard that he went through the floor, but then erupts from the ground and launches Tank into the air and onto her back, where in just 2 shots he finishes her off. Later on, he even gave Ace some trouble, who is one of the strongest dinosaurs at the end of the show. The armored potato jumped off a bridge and then continued its fight with Ace. Even after Ace himself jumped on it so hard that it went underground again, it still pushed on, using the very same attack it did to Tank on Ace. It took Ace launching him hundreds of feet into the air to finally defeat him, which is a bit underwhelming considering what it takes for some of the other dinosaurs to go down. But at least he did better than Tank, who went back to card form after 2 hits. Even with a rematch, it defeated Tank, this time with more ease. The guy is able to dodge attacks and goes head to head with what's supposed to be one of the most durable dinosaurs in the series. Eventually, he somehow was able to launch himself at almost 100 feet in the air. Almost 100 feet into the air at a standstill and perform a rolling attack that went through the earth and connected with Tank. Like, this is some stuff that you only see in an anime.
Well, no shit.
He managed to hold off a powered up Ace and Paris, only leaving the fight because he was called back. Both Ace and Tank are easily capable of destroying skyscraper-sized infrastructure, and the Ankylosaurus was able to tank most of that damage. So I can't see any theropod outside of Dinosaur King winning against him. I mean, maybe Ark's Giga could, because the Anky is not quite as strong as a lot of the other dinosaurs from the show I mentioned, but 8 times out of 10, I'd still say that it takes the dub. Moving away from the anime, we have a version from the Jurassic franchise, and it's nowhere nearly as helpless as the one we saw in the first movie. This one is larger, faster, and could one-shot the largest of theropods. This Ankylosaurus comes from an old arcade game that I personally never played, called Warpath Jurassic Park. The closest thing to this game that I've played was Jurassic Fight Club, and I always used to pick the Majungasaurus despite its basic attacks. Anyway, Warpath Jurassic Park was the Street Fighter version for dinosaur enthusiasts, where you get to pick your own dinosaur and fight in different arenas. Some of these dinosaurs have some brutal attacks, like the Roy the Rage Triceratops that hooks the opponent by the throat and then lifts it into the air, all the way to the Carcharodontosaurus that drags its victims across the floor like it owes them money. One of the most heavy-hitting dinosaurs in this game, however, is the Ankylosaurus. In terms of size, it's one of the biggest on the list, at just under 9 tons, and with that size you would think that it's a cumbersome animal that just lumbers on from place to place. But no, this animal is extremely agile, able to dodge attacks from the most nimble of opponents, and able to defend itself from the most powerful of strikes with its back. If any herbivore more than 6 tons tries to jump from even 20 feet, the legs would no longer be in working order. One of its most HP reducing moves is when it spins in the air and hits a target, which usually finishes off most contesters. In the event where it does get flipped on its back, it just jumps back on its feet, like it summons the will to be turned back on the right side. Now, it is a myth that if an Ankylosaurus was on its back, that it wouldn't be able to turn itself around, similarly to how most people see a tortoise when it's on its shell. These animals are capable of leaning to the side and getting back upright, but it wouldn't be nowhere near the speed of this thing. Along with the Triceratops in the game, it doesn't discriminate with its target. Small dinosaurs and even scientists running for their lives, and are sometimes even targeted by the herbivore. Although it's lighter than the largest theropods in the franchise, it still would win in my opinion. Things such as the Spinosaurus and Giganotosaurus would find it hard to get past the defenses, because this thing pulls a sort of honey badger like pose when it gets defensive and basically tenses up all the muscles preparing for a fight. And unlike the Ankylosaurus in the first movie, if this one lands a direct hit to a vital area like the head or chest, the carnivore is going to come crashing down. I mean, most of the dinosaurs in this game can beat even the strongest dinosaurs in the genre aside from the Mosasaurus. But this one especially would be a dangerous adversary, because the dinosaurs that do manage to land hits on this thing have game mechanics and hacks that animals in the real world wouldn't. So far, despite all of this, I'd still say that it's the weakest Ankylosaurus so far, because due to pure size and destructive power, the Ice Age Ankylosaurus would win that one, and the Dinosaur King's version has great durability and attack potency. With that said, it could possibly overpower the last Ankylosaurus we have on the list, and one is actually another from the Jurassic franchise. In this section I'm going to be covering two different Ankylosaurs because I couldn't choose and honestly just wanted one of them to be on the list. The first one I'm going to be talking about is of course Bumpy. She is my second favorite dinosaur in the franchise right after the Spinosaurus, and that's mostly due to how adorable she is. Chances are that even if she wasn't that strong, I probably would have found some way to make her end up on the list. Bumpy is an Ankylosaurus that Ben raised from a baby to a juvenile, since after the Scorpius attack, she went and lived with a native Ankylosaurus on the island. I will say that being exposed to constant predation has really turned these Ankylosaurs into creatures that could actually defend themselves, because with the park down and many different predators loose on the island, they were forced to adopt defensive measures. When the Scorpius Rex attacked, they behaved like a machine and blocked different attacks accordingly, which made even this crash out back off. When Ben was fighting Toro, Bumpy comes running in and crashes into the Carnotaurus, sending it flying across the floor. She's also very agile for her dimensions. The moment she dodged a bite from Toro, she countered with a club swipe to the head, where she eventually worked with Ben to drive Toro off a cliff. In Chaos Theory, she took on an Atrociraptor to protect the humans she loved. It wasn't even a fight, to be honest. The raptor was just a nuisance that she could have easily shrugged off. What she was trying to do was prevent it from reaching Ben and Sammy. In the newest season, we see her baby called Smoothie, which makes me wish Biosyn was kinda real so I could have one. In the next season, however, we should get to see Smoothie and her mother reunited. The next Ankylosaurus is far less experienced in battle compared to Bumpy, but his raw power just made me want to mention him on the list. Okay, after recording this, I found out that Sai was actually a Psychinia. I hope I didn't butcher the name, or at least I think he is, because in the first movie, the animal I thought was a Tarchia was an Ankylosaurus, so I thought Sai was too. I mean, he technically is part of the Ankylosaur family, so I guess it counts. And to be honest with you guys, I just really don't want to record again. Sai is an Ankylosaurus from Dinosaur King Journey to Fire Mountain, which is honestly terrible compared to the first movie. The original Dino King was incredible and captured the struggles Speckles and the other characters had to go through while growing up, whereas this movie has a weird plotline and somehow worse CGI despite being newer. Anyway, Sai first appears after a failed attempt at trying to attack Speckles because he thought Speckles was the one that took away Daisy. When he's on his back, he takes the full weight of Speckles standing on his chest, and while he does have terrible eyesight, he has an incredible sense of smell, capable of tracking down other dinosaurs despite them not being in the area for days. During the fight with the Brontoscorpions, he took no damage from the scorpion stinger, despite these arachnids weighing between 10 and 14 tons. Everything so far doesn't sound that impressive, and it probably isn't when you compare it to the rest on the list. But he's able to do some serious damage when he's not trying. His biggest feat was sending more than one Carnotaurus who weighed between 3 and 4 tons airborne without even thinking about it. He was told to just keep swinging, and that's what he did, and somehow he landed blows on every single one that attacked him. And he hit them so hard that they went up in the sky, which is something even Bumpy isn't able to do to Toro. She just made him step back with her tail slap. Later on in the movie, he bulldozes through an entire pack of velociraptors with Speckles and Fang, and has enough speed to somehow keep up with the swift theropods when they're all running for their lives from this weird dragon iguana thing. Like, I don't know what this thing is. Why would they add this into a dinosaur movie? So although being a bit dumb, to put it plainly, he still has more raw power than Bumpy, which earns him a spot on the list. Alright folks, that is just about it for this video. You Acro fans should be getting your video tomorrow, and if I'm not burnt out, I will do a Megalodon video on Saturday. With that said, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.